What if I told you that behind the polished elegance of Erika Kirk lies a secret life so dramatic, so astonishing, that even Donald Trump was left speechless? From hidden fortunes and whispered alliances to the moment she wore a blood-stained pendant in public, nothing about her story is as simple as it seems. Stay until the end, because the final revelation about her rise to power will change everything you think you know about her. Roots, identity, and early formation. Long before Erika Kirk became a woman whose lifestyle would one day shock even figures as powerful as Donald Trump, her story began in a quiet corner of Scottsdale, far from the elite circles she would eventually command. She was born on November 20, 1988, into a fractured home that split apart almost immediately after her arrival, leaving her mother, Laurie France, to raise her almost entirely on her own. But if Erika inherited anything from those early years, it was the understanding that greatness isn't inherited, it's built, one disciplined choice at a time. And the first architect of that discipline wasn't a celebrity or a wealthy mentor, but her grandfather, Carl Kenneth France. Carl was a Swedish immigrant and the former vice president of the American Banknote Company, the firm responsible for printing secure global currencies. Though Erika never grew up surrounded by vast family wealth, Carl taught her something far more valuable than money: that hard work is the only currency that never loses value. This philosophy became the blueprint of her life. He would sit her at the kitchen table, spread out financial ledgers from his career, and teach her how to read numbers not as math, but as stories. Stories of effort, risk, patience, and reward. These early lessons planted the seeds for Erika's future obsession with order, structure, and self-improvement. Her childhood, however, didn't look like the origin story of a future multimillionaire widow or CEO. Erika was a tomboy, often wearing oversized hand-me-downs from her brother, sprinting across basketball courts and refusing to wear heels until she turned 14. By the age of 5, she was already in structured athletic training, building a competitive drive that would later define her approach to business, faith initiatives, and eventually, the high-stakes political world she married into. What truly separated Erika from her peers wasn't just discipline, but faith. A faith not practiced only on Sundays, but lived as a daily habit. Her mother took her to volunteer at soup kitchens, church drives, and community outreach programs, grounding her in a worldview where service wasn't a choice, but a duty. Those early mornings spent handing hot meals to strangers shaped the ideological core that would one day frame her public persona, a woman who could blend luxury with piety, influence with humility, and ambition with spiritual conviction. Her multicultural heritage also formed a rich foundation: Syrian, Lebanese, and Italian roots from her mother's side, Swedish lineage from her father. This blend gave Erika a worldview that was both global and grounded, shaping her intuition, her communication style, and her ability to move effortlessly between diverse social environments, skills that would later allow her to sit comfortably beside billionaires, political strategists, and faith leaders alike. When she entered Notre Dame Preparatory High School, her classmates saw a girl who was academically sharp, athletically gifted, and quietly determined. What they didn't see were the late-night study sessions, the balancing of jobs, sports, and volunteer work, or the internal pressure she placed on herself to rise above her circumstances. Her acceptance into NCAA Division II basketball wasn't just an athletic milestone. It was the first time Erika felt she was building something independently, one achievement at a time. Every moment of her early formation, every relocation, every volunteer shift, every game played on worn-down basketball courts shaped the version of Erika who would later step into unimaginable wealth, political power, and global influence. But the roots of that future were planted here, long before designer gowns, multi-million-dollar estates, or headlines about her lifestyle. Comment her choice if you think she has the right to live lavishly, or her image if you think the timing raises real questions. Academic path and first exposure to public life. There is a moment in Erika Kirk's story where her life stops looking like a traditional resume and begins to resemble the early formation of a public figure destined for a far bigger stage. It happens not in a marble-floored office or a luxury estate, but inside the hallways of Notre Dame Preparatory High School in Scottsdale, where her teachers remembered her as the student who never blended into the crowd. Years later, in 2021, the school inducted her into its Hall of Fame, honoring not just her academic record, but the way she had already carried herself as someone aware that faith, public service, and influence would eventually merge into her identity. Her next chapter unfolded on a basketball court. At Regis University in Denver, she played NCAA Division II basketball, a discipline that would teach her something more fundamental than athletic skill, an understanding of pressure, routine, and performance. Traits that would eventually mirror her composure on political stages, red carpets, and later the executive boardrooms where multi-million-dollar decisions were made. Those years also hinted at her tomboy childhood, the one where she wore her brother's t-shirts and avoided heels until 14, a contrast that makes her later transformation into a couture-wearing, luxury-adorned widow all the more striking. But the turning point came when she moved back to Arizona to pursue dual bachelor's degrees in political science and international relations at Arizona State University. This wasn't a passive academic pursuit. Her professors described her as someone who asked geopolitical questions far beyond the scope of the syllabus, pushing discussions toward culture, conflict, and the role of faith in public life. This intellectual grounding would later become the backbone of her advocacy, her speeches, and eventually the public persona that stunned mainstream audiences for how seamlessly it blended glamour with theology. Her ascent continued at Liberty University, where she earned a Juris Master's degree in American legal studies. It wasn't just another diploma, it was her formal entry into the mechanics of law and governance. By the time she began pursuing a doctorate in biblical studies, she had already shaped herself into something rare, a public figure who could oscillate between scripture and statecraft, between policy analysis and Instagram-ready luxury. Yet her first genuine exposure to public life came not in politics, but on a stage flooded with camera flashes. When she won Miss Arizona USA 2010, she stepped into a national spotlight that most contestants used as a stepping stone to entertainment, but Erika used it as a platform for mental health awareness, faith-based empowerment, and community advocacy. It was the beginning of a pattern. She never entered a space just to occupy it, she entered to redefine its purpose. And while other contestants faded back into anonymity after their pageant years, Erika expanded her reach. She founded Everyday Heroes Like You, a non-profit designed to elevate small, overlooked charities that rarely make headlines but quietly sustain local communities. She did not choose billion-dollar institutions, she chose the forgotten ones. The initiative reflected the values her mother instilled in her: service not as a performance, but as a habit. Her second major endeavor, Bible in 365, revealed something even more telling. Erika wasn't content with traditional faith practice. She adapted it into a digital movement, guiding thousands through scripture with a blend of technology, multimedia storytelling, and community engagement. It was one of the earliest signs that she understood influence not as a megaphone, but as a network, one that could turn faith into virality and devotion into daily habit. By the time she stepped into the political sphere years later, these chapters had already shaped the woman she would become, a figure of polished discipline, intellectual drive, and the unmistakable beginnings of a luxury-wrapped public identity. Entering circles of power, Turning Point and Charlie Kirk. Stepping into the world of Turning Point USA in 2018 was supposed to be just another career move for Erika Kirk, a woman already navigating the edges of privilege and ambition. But the moment she walked into the organization's new Phoenix headquarters, the trajectory of her life shifted into a story so dramatic and unlikely that even political insiders still whisper about it. She wasn't there to meet a future husband, she was there for a job interview, but Charlie Kirk, the organization's founder, happened to be in the room, and the encounter sparked a connection that neither of them anticipated. What followed was not a slow courtship, but a rapid escalation into influence, travel, and access. Charlie invited her to New York City just days later, a trip that pulled Erika into a world of donors, high-net-worth political players, and private gatherings where decisions were made far from cameras. By the time the pair married in a private Scottsdale ceremony on May 8, 2021, Erika had already built a $2 million personal net worth, earned through luxury real estate transactions in Manhattan and partnerships she had accumulated from her pageant success as Miss Arizona USA 2010. The marriage didn't create her wealth, it amplified it. But the shift after the wedding was impossible to ignore. Erika's world expanded from modest professional circles into environments defined by multi-million-dollar fundraisers, private jet invitations, and the kind of donor hospitality normally reserved for senators or billionaires. It wasn't long before she was seen wearing custom Dolce & Gabbana gowns, Chanel haute couture, and diamond pieces valued at more than $100,000 each. Selections that signaled her entrance into a lifestyle where presentation wasn't optional, it was the currency of influence. Inside their home life, Erika moved into high-value real estate that underscored the scale of the world she had married into. One of the properties tied to her new chapter was a $4.5 million mansion outside Phoenix, a sprawling estate with tall archways, polished stone floors, a resort-style pool, and private courtyards designed for political fundraisers. Together, the couple controlled assets estimated between $12 and $20 million, including a Manhattan apartment with full glass walls overlooking the skyline, and a Florida Gulf Coast condo offering sunrise views that stretched across the water like a moving painting. Yet wealth wasn't the only transformation. Her proximity to Charlie's network changed her public posture. She began traveling internationally with greater frequency, visiting Israel 18 times, attending events in Romania's royal castles, and staying in hotels where suites cost $2,000 a night, and private security trailed quietly behind. Each appearance placed her deeper into conservative donor ecosystems, amplifying both her visibility and expectations of the role she now represented. What made Erika's transition so compelling, however, was not just the luxury, but the way she balanced her rising lifestyle with symbols of faith and personal meaning. The St. Michael pendant she began wearing frequently wasn't just jewelry, it had belonged to Charlie himself, stained from the night he died. Wearing it in public became a marker of identity, grief, and devotion, but also a point of fascination and controversy. Observers wondered whether the pendant represented loyalty, trauma, or a narrative carefully curated for a growing public presence. Still, it was the contrast, the tomboy childhood, the sports background, the years of volunteer work set against this sudden acceleration into elite influence that made Erika's story feel cinematic. By the time she stepped into Turning Point USA's highest circles, she wasn't just the wife of its founder, she was becoming a figure people watched closely, analyzed quietly, and speculated about relentlessly. Her entry into power circles wasn't an accident. It was the beginning of a reinvention that would reshape her life and her public identity in ways no one, not even Erika herself, could have predicted. Transformation into a luxury public figure. A transformation didn't begin in a spotlight or on a political stage. It began quietly after her marriage to Charlie Kirk, when Erika's world shifted from disciplined routine into a lifestyle defined by access, expectation, and extraordinary wealth. The moment she stepped into the role of a high-profile political wife, her presence changed. She was no longer simply a former Miss Arizona USA or a luxury real estate agent. She was suddenly navigating donor estates, private jet terminals, and the inner circles of one of America's most influential conservative movements. It became obvious in the way she traveled. Commercial flights faded from her schedule, replaced by private jets arranged through Turning Point USA's top donors. She visited Israel 18 times, often staying in historic suites overlooking Jerusalem's old city, where nightly rates exceeded $2,000. Trips to Romania brought her to medieval castles used for exclusive political gatherings, events so private they rarely permitted cameras. Each journey pulled her deeper into the elite network her husband had spent a decade building. The change continued inside her wardrobe. Erika's public appearances evolved from modest, pageant-inspired styling into polished luxury. Dolce & Gabbana alta moda gowns, Chanel runway pieces, and custom-tailored evening wear designed specifically for donor galas. Her jewelry collection grew into one of the most quietly valuable assets tied to her name. Estimates placed it between $10 and $30 million, including multi-carat diamond rings, chandelier earrings crafted in Paris, and a gold bracelet set once auctioned for over $100,000. But the item that drew the most fascination was never the largest or the rarest. It was Charlie Kirk's St. Michael pendant, the one he wore the night he died, the one that still carries the faint marks from that night. Erika began wearing it publicly in 2025, often paired with couture gowns or designer coats, transforming it from a private relic into a symbol. For some, it represented devotion and faith. For others, a reminder that grief and power often travel side by side. Her real estate footprint expanded just as dramatically. In 2025, she sold a $5.25 million Mediterranean-style estate in Arizona, a property with stone floors, a glass-walled great room, and an infinity pool facing the desert horizon. She relocated to a $4.5 million mansion near Phoenix, a residence designed for both family life and high-profile hosting. Nighttime drone photos revealed manicured courtyards, ambient lighting, and long driveways built for security vehicles. Beyond Arizona, Erika retained access to a luxury Manhattan apartment, part of an inherited portfolio valued between $12 and $20 million. The apartment's glass walls faced the Hudson River, and its interiors, Italian marble, hand-woven rugs, and limited edition art, reflected a level of wealth she rarely addressed publicly. Further south, a Florida Gulf Coast condo provided sunrise views and proximity to political retreats, often attended by national figures. Yet what kept people watching wasn't just the money or the travel or the jewelry. It was the contrast. The woman who spent childhood afternoons volunteering in soup kitchens was now photographed stepping out of black SUVs, meeting billionaires for dinner, and wearing diamonds large enough to catch camera flashes from across a ballroom. It created a tension, a fascination, because her rise didn't follow the usual trajectory. There was no slow ascent, no gradual evolution. Instead, her public identity crystallized almost overnight into someone balancing faith, legacy, influence, and a lifestyle powerful enough to shock even her husband's former allies. Widowhood, power shift, and public controversy. The night of September 10, 2025, did more than end a life, it detonated the axis of an entire political universe. Charlie Kirk's assassination during a speech at Utah Valley University sent shockwaves through conservative America. But while the country mourned the loss of one of its most polarizing figures, cameras quietly shifted to the woman standing at the center of the aftermath, Erika Kirk. Her response was the first twist no one saw coming. Just days after the attack, standing in front of microphones, still draped in black ribbons, Erika publicly forgave the killer. No tears, no anger, no political performance. Just a measured, almost serene declaration of forgiveness that stunned both supporters and critics. Some called it saint-like, others called it strategy, but everyone agreed this was not the reaction of a traditional political widow. What followed next was even more unexpected. Within weeks, Erika transitioned from grieving spouse to CEO of Turning Point USA, stepping into a position valued at a $286,000 annual salary and influence over a $100 million organization. The speed of the decision raised eyebrows. But the seamlessness of her takeover raised far more questions. Board members, donors, and insiders insisted she was the natural successor. Skeptics wondered if the succession plan had been drafted long before Charlie's final speech. Her first public events as CEO added fuel to the conversation. Cameras captured her at Charlie's memorial wearing $20,000 diamond earrings, their facades catching the stage lights like flashbulbs. At the Medal of Freedom ceremony weeks later, she appeared in a sleek black gown paired with oversized, heavily engraved gold rings, pieces rumored to be custom-made, with initials representing her children and a design valued above $15,000 per ring. The understated pageant girl of a decade ago was gone. In her place stood a woman who moved with the elegance and confidence of someone fully aware of how the world now watched her. Then came the financial whispers. A mysterious $350,000 transfer surfaced, wired to Erika from a dissolved shell company just 2 weeks before Charlie's death. No confirmed source, no explanation. Analysts on political forums dissected the timing down to the minute. Critics argued it hinted at hidden networks of influence. Supporters dismissed it as nothing more than estate planning, but the timing was undeniably strange. Unverified footage also appeared online, grainy clips showing Erika meeting with unidentified men in suits at a Phoenix hotel. No context, no audio, nothing but speculation. Then, almost absurdly, a GoFundMe campaign appeared under her name, asking for financial support. The page vanished within hours, but screenshots spread like wildfire, raising more questions than answers. Yet through all of it, money rumors, political tension, accusations of opportunism, her demeanor never cracked. She came to events polished, poised, unmoved by the noise. To some, this signaled strength. To others, calculation. But to everyone watching, it symbolized a transformation, from beauty queen to political spouse, to a woman stepping into power with unnerving precision. And it left the country wondering a single, unsettling question: was Erika Kirk navigating tragedy or ascending through it? Comment "Her Rise" if you think this chapter defined who she really is. Erika Kirk's world is a labyrinth of faith, luxury, influence, and unanswered questions, and the deeper you look, the more surprising it becomes. Her transformation from athlete and pageant queen to multi-millionaire widow and political power figure is still unfolding, and we've only uncovered the first layer. If you enjoyed this journey into one of America's most controversial new elites, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. Part 2 will explore the hidden alliances and financial trails that could rewrite her entire story.